Nobody.
Yeah. Speaking of political finger pointing, there was a pretty well, I guess, known little mini doc that the Conservative Party of Canada released. I saw it. It was actually, I'm curious about your general thoughts on it. I mean, it seems like a really good communication tool, but I do want to play a clip from it. But just general thoughts on if you'd seen it about that little mini doc.
Listen, I think it's brilliant. I think that uh, Poilievre has tapped into a dire, troubling anxiety that Canadians across the country feel,
Hmm.
and it's correct. I mean, people are struggling to afford their daily lives. The cost of housing has skyrocketed. People have mortgages they can't pay. Um, it's it's very troubling for people who are just really trying to raise their kids and live their lives.
Yeah.
So I admire the fact that a pretty intelligent, long, like there's not an assumption that these 2-minute clips of,
Mm-hmm.
kind of mean, whatever dirt throwing are going to be
Right.
satisfied. Like,
Right.
I think that's excellent. Okay, I don't agree with the conclusion. I don't agree with all the data, but the manner and form of it, hats off.
He kind of like systematically breaks down the problem in a way that's very easy to understand for people, and throw some mud pies here or there, but for the most part, you're right. I think he kind of gets to what people are feeling about. The clip I want to bring up is where he kind of talks about his common sense plan, and it's really centered around municipalities. So let me just bring that up and watch together and see what your reaction is here.
Incentivized good behavior rather than reinforcing the bad. Here's how we can. The federal government spends about $4.5 billion on direct and continuous municipal infrastructure transfers. Big city politicians care about getting that money more than anything else. They'll only permit more home building faster if their federal money depends on it. My common sense plan? 1. Require big cities to complete 15% more home building per year as a condition of getting federal infrastructure money. 2. Give building bonuses to cities that exceed the 15% target. Dollars should be based on housing completions, not promises. 3. Require federally funded transit stations be permitted for high-density apartments all around it, and withhold federal transit grants until the apartments are built and occupied. 4. Sell off 15% of federal buildings and thousands of acres of surplus federal land suitable for housing. Instead,
Let me just go back to that list there. So yeah, I don't know. Anything stand out from here? Like, what do you think about these recommendations here?
Yeah, so some of them already are in place. So there already is, funding that's earmarked for, achieving a certain number of units being built. So I think that's in some ways it's kind of like repeating what's already been stated.
Mm.
I think that the piece about land is a concern because we have lots of examples, unfortunately, of where public lands have been sold that previously occupied public housing, and the results that we hope to see in terms of public housing being built or more housing being built hasn't happened. The land has stood vacant.
Mm.
So we have a lot of examples of that, for example, here in Vancouver, unfortunately. So I don't think that's a good idea. I think the public government should hang on to their land and use other forms of tenure to construct housing, namely through long-term leases. I don't think selling.
Could you if you sold off that land, but then I don't know, zoned it in a way that was dedicated for housing? Like, could that be an opportunity? Maybe.
I mean, this is where we come back to who's holding it. So, is it a
Mm.
nonprofit body? Are we going to keep it affordable for the long term, basically,
Okay.
or will it ultimately be turned into a form of market housing?
Right.
That's where we have these cautionary tales in British Columbia that I don't think we want to be replicating.
Mm.
So, I think the bottom line is it going to remain housing that's affordable or not? And
Okay.
what vehicle are we using for that? But selling it off doesn't seem like the right call. We have a bit too much of that already. This is land that is held in our collectivity and can be used to help address this issue. And then other ideas around transit stations and high density, that's being done in many jurisdictions. So what do I think? I guess I think, yes, tying funding to conditions is good. It's done already and it should continue. The idea of austerity type approaches don't, in the long term, trickle down to the people who really need it. So believing that the market is going to solve this problem hasn't borne out in history, and I don't think should be attempted now.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I think about the measures. I hope that answers the question.
I think it does for sure. It sounds like so some of these things are definitely happening. And in principle, the selling the in theory, the thought of selling off federal land seems appealing, but it kind of has historically fallen short. It sounds like on that front. Does
Yes,
that sort of capture things? Yeah.
It has definitely fallen short.
Yeah.
And I like the idea of using public lands a lot.
Yeah.
It's another sort of pillar of what we're doing here at UBC in terms of research. I like that, it's getting more attention, but the idea of selling it to for-profit developers with the belief that it will remain affordable is unfortunately not borne by history.